Welcome into Believe in Kentucky. Vinny Hardy, Aaron Gershon. Got Jalen Whitlow's not with us this evening, but we will do what we do. Courtesy of the Believe Podcast Network. AG, man, we was talking a little bit before we started about the travel. First of all, how was Lexington when you left it, and how you been with all this, man? Because you just come from Athens on the way home.
Yeah. Still decided around 5 o'clock. I was just too tired to finish the drive. So usually when I go to road games, unless it's Knoxville, Nashville, Louisville, I'll do in one day. But one of the close ones, I'll go the day before a game and then come home the day after it. So that gives you 2 days where you break up the long drives. But with the weather, obviously, was not able to leave on Monday. And wasn't going to leave on Sunday morning. That's just too much time away from the family, fiance, dog, and we were hunkered down at my fiance's family house to, our apartment loves to lose power, so we didn't want to deal with that. So decided to break it up and staying just outside of Knoxville today. I'll be home by morning, but long few days for sure, and was not the most fun game to go cover by any means. I mean, look, you're going to lose games, and this SEC, we'll get into all the ebbs and flows of it. It's an unforgiving, brutal conference, but it was not an entertaining game. It was a ref show, not from the fact not that it cost Kentucky the game. The fact they went to the monitor 7 times and they called every ticky-tack. It was just not a fun college basketball game by any means, and Kentucky came off the wrong side of it, and it's kind of been a tale of 2 games, that's for sure. Early in this SEC for Kentucky, where you beat a Florida team that showed you last night they're as elite gets, and then you go on the road and you play a Georgia team that you figure they're good, they're physical, but they're probably, with how good this SEC is, a team you should probably beat, and you got your butt beat. You got bullied again.
Yeah, You nailed it. Tale of 2 games. And I don't know about tempering expectations. Mark Pope has spoke to it a little bit. He said there's times where we look like the greatest team in America. I look like the greatest coach. There's times I look like the worst coach. So he's hinted at the ups and downs of it all over these next 18 games. He's looking forward to every moment of it. But he also hinted that, hey, it's not always going to be like it was Saturday and Tuesday. You got like you said, the tale 2 games. You already mentioned it maybe before we started. Could be more the same this coming Saturday in Starkville, because you get part 2 of the Bulldog road trip.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, look, it's the blueprint to beat Kentucky's out. They've lost all 3 of the games they've lost this year have been eerily similar, and that obviously Clemson, Ohio State, and now Georgia. It's been physicality. What do I mean by that? First of all, running Kentucky off the 3-point line, just having a guy in their grill immediately when it looks like they could have an open shot, just stalking Kobe Brea, for lack of better terms, just all over him, not giving him an inch to breathe. And that's been the recipe for all the teams that beat Kentucky on the defensive end. And they've pressed a lot, especially Georgia picked them up full court for a lot of the game last night. And Lamont Butler admitted with us after the game that it affected them. And then the physicality on the defensive end for Kentucky, and the other to finish the offensive side of it, I don't know if it's – I was just talking about this on the Big Blue Insider in the last hour. I don't know if it's Mark Pope being so insistent they have to hit 30 or take 33s a game. Mm-hmm. It's the scheme, whatever, or they just back down to physicality or they're afraid of it. But there were at least 6 times in that game last night where they had an open or close to open layup and they passed it up to try to get a 3. Like, look, I totally get that your offense is 3-point heavy. You value the 3-point shot, but score. Like, if you could get the bucket, score. Look, when they beat Gonzaga and they beat Duke, they pretty much abandoned the 3 ball in the second half because those two teams did a really good job taking it away, and they went and won the game inside. And there were plays to be had by the rim last night, and they couldn't get up. They didn't get it done. And then on the other side of the floor, defensively, I think, they need more from Amari Williams just as a pure defender. But I think the biggest issue with him, with Andrew Carr, they're not boxing out. Like, they're just letting these aren't a lucky offensive rebounds, long rebounds, or tip drills, and it lands in the hands of a point guard. Like, these guys are getting outworked by smaller players, and they're just getting out physical, and they're not putting their butts in the guys. It's simple stuff. And that's really, really concerning. The offensive rebounding against Kentucky has kind of been an issue all year. They give up, I think I asked Mark Pope about it early in the year. I think he said the number was they wanted to hold opponents under 10 a game. And that was after they allowed double digits to whoever they played the first 2 games of the year, Bucknell and Wright State, I think it was. It got better for a little bit, and it's dropped back off. And you go look at all the games they've lost, that they've gotten out rebounded on all 3 of them. And then these last 2 losses, they've given up double-digit offensive boards. And the last 2 games, Florida and Georgia, I think Georgia, they corrected the box sheet and they had 13 offensive rebounds. Florida had 15. And that's not getting any easier because their next 2 games are elite offensive rebounding teams. Mississippi State is 39th in the country. Texas A&M is number 1 in the country in offensive rebounding. So that's something that's got to get changed like immediately, or in this SEC that is completely unforgiving. And we'll get into the results, what's been happening across the league. It's crazy. It's pandemonium. Kentucky's they're going to finish, and you could go 9-9 and 8-10 in this SEC and still make the tournament this year, but it would obviously mess up your NCAA tournament seeding. They're going to end up being a 9-9, 8-10 SEC team if they don't get the defensive rebounding sound, because you just can't give up second chance points against these teams that are so darn good.
Yeah, and it's Mark Pope kept saying last night they're distracted. He used the word distracted several times. He spoke 7-8 minutes post game. You were right there and got a question in, and he gave you a really long, in-depth answer, man. So
and that was obviously all about the offensive rebounding. Kind of to summarize his thoughts there, I mean, he talked a lot about being in the moment and maybe distractions in that moment, not being fully focused on getting that rebound. And that's what it looks like. And they've got to, I don't know, I'm not a coach. He knows better than me, but he's got to get them locked in and focused on closing possessions. And I think they won. They won the Florida game, obviously, because they shot the lights out of the ball. Kobe Brea was stellar. A lot of, 6 guys in double figures, whatever it was. But they also, when they needed to get stops, they got stops. I know Florida had 15 offensive boards, but, they put Lamont Butler on Elijah Martin when he got hot. They were able to close in all 3 of their 10-0 plus runs. They got defensive rebounds at a high level. They didn't give up any second chance points. I really think even the last 2 games, and Mark Pope said it in that answer, they've done a good job at making offenses take tougher shots. They've had better ball screen defense. Like Ohio State, it was just Ohio State offensive rebounded well, but they were able to kind of get whatever they wanted. They didn't even necessarily need those second chance opportunities because they were scoring on the first op. But the last 2 games that they've forced the offenses into tougher shots, they're just not closing possessions. And, Florida, they were able to close enough possessions to win the game. This game against Georgia, they could not close out possessions. I mean, Georgia shot 41% from the field. They shot, I think, under 30% from 3, and they still beat you by 13. How many I'm going to look up real quick how many second chance points they got. It has to get cleaned up. And if it doesn't, they're in serious trouble. Again, they play 2 elite offensive rebounding teams, but the best offensive rebounding team in the country comes in here less than a week from now. It was 17 second chance points for Georgia. That's too many.
It's and you can just tell he's maybe can't even put his finger on it. He's agitated by whatever it is. He just can't get it work. That's kind of the way he was answering you. I mean, he's still friendly and honest and all that, but you can tell he was He was really bothered by what he saw, and like you said, they're trying to, even a deep dive into the officiating and all that sort of stuff that we heard about. So they're trying to just get to the root cause of it. Physicality is some of it. Athleticism or lack thereof is some of it. Now that they were in conference play, because some of it, these guys are good that you have older players, veteran guys that won you the Gonzaga game because you could switch up defenses, you could do the 1-3-1, you can do a lot of stuff because they've been around and all that. You got a bunch of young guys you probably couldn't have flipped the script so quick. But in the sense of you're older and you kind of are what you are at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe you've hit your ceiling.
That's the scary part.
The potential part. And he's talked about, I wish I had more time to get, wishing he had more time and hating that the season's getting by so quick. He still also speaks to the untapped potential they have to, as a team, to grow together. But it's kind of a blessing and a curse to have the experience because they've, Amar's been at Drexel for this whole time. He is what he is. He's always going to go left. He's not an offensively polished guy. He can't go to the right. Carr's always going to go right. Doesn't really have much of a left. We talked about it last week. Get in conference play. You got guys bigger and stronger, can jump higher. Ruben Chinyelu met Amari at the rim and sent a dunk back in his face. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about now that you're in conference play. You just, if you're not executing flawlessly and humming and clicking on all cylinders, then that's where their advantage is. And if that gets disrupted, like you said, we saw it at Clemson, we saw it last night. Ohio State was just penetrating and dishing and getting what they wanted. But if they kind of rough you up and punch you in the mouth, that's what we were kind of hearing about it.
No question. And look, it's similar in a way to last year's team. Obviously, completely different players, different coaching, but it felt like early in the year they really struggled with these defensive juggernaut type teams, and the teams they were able to get into shootouts with, they were able to take care of. I mean, we've already seen it this year. Louisville was a bit of a shootout. Kentucky won that one. Florida obviously was a shootout. They were able to beat a really good Duke defensive team, and Gonzaga is a mediocre defensive team. They're more like a Florida, like an Alabama that you're going to see come in here next weekend. So Kentucky's the big thing is, like we've both been saying here, the blueprint is out. And it's just like baseball when you're hot and then you cool off. It's because pitchers adjust and, the scouting report. And then, once you start hitting that inside pitch, then it's okay. We got to readjust and we're going to work you outside and make you win outside. So now if you're Kentucky, you need to go out and prove you can handle physicality and win on the road. But more so from a game, for the sake of this conversation, talk more about the physicality. Kentucky's got to prove they can go out and win a rock fight and a dog fight. And once they do that and they prove, hey, you can't run us off the 3-point line, we're going to set some tough screens and open our guys up. Or we're going to go take some tough shots and make them in the paint. Or we're going to, close out each possession or at least hold you under 10 offensive rebounds a game. Until they do that, opposing teams are just going to keep doing what all three of these teams that have beat them are doing. Mm-hmm. And, it's easier said than done to execute. Florida, Florida's just a different breed because they have three such elite offensive guards. Mm-hmm. And, they're going to run with you. But, a lot of these teams in Alabama, the same thing, but most of the SEC is going to play like Georgia, going to play like Clemson, going to play like Ohio State, especially, Mississippi State and A&M up next. Tennessee are all on the horizon. Like those are some of the most physical teams in the country. Yeah. So until you prove you can, like I thought last year, Kentucky went down and beat Arkansas like 63-57.
Yeah.
And for a while there, like teams kind of had to, like, I want to say Kentucky kind of got hot after that. At least they won a couple in a row. And I felt like that was because they made teams have to readjust to them and change how they were going to go attack and beat them. And, this year, Kentucky hasn't made anyone adjust yet. And until they do that, it's just going to be the same blueprint, and teams are going to be able to execute it if they have enough strength and physicality. So, we'll see. We'll see what this group can do, but it's really, you've got to get it under control somehow.
Because last year, they until for most of the year, they couldn't stop a nosebleed. They could score with the best of them and couldn't guard anybody. Everybody was scoring at will. And so, that Arkansas game was like, they held somebody to under 60 points and ground out a game because, you had Reed and Rob, and offensively it wasn't a problem. But, guarding people was. So, yeah.
Yeah. And look, I actually think, again, I know it's crazy. They gave 100 to Florida. They guarded okay in that. Like Elijah Martin and Walter Clayton made some circus shots, and they're outstanding basketball players. I'm in Clayton. We saw what he did against Kentucky last year, Conference Player of the Year when he was at Iona with Rick Pitino. And then Elijah Martin, I've watched closely the last couple of years. He was at FAU where my brother goes to school, and he's a fantastic player. Was a huge part of them going to the Final Four. So, I thought Kentucky, like, defensively wasn't bad. And then against Georgia, first 10 minutes, or not, I guess more so like the first 5 minutes, I was like, this is the best defense Kentucky's played all year. Like they were playing outstanding defensively. And then it kind of fell apart for like a 10-minute stretch. And then the second half, Georgia didn't score that, but how many points did they score in the second half? It wasn't that many. It was 35. Yeah. Yeah. Like, it was 35-35 in the second half. So yeah, you live with that. Like that's pretty good. So, and again, Georgia finished the game shooting 41.8% from the field and 29% from two. Like Kentucky did a lot of good things defensively. They just didn't close out possessions. So, that's what it's going to come down to. And, we'll see if they're up to the challenge. Again, and you made a great point about this team being so veteran heavy that there's a lot of pros to that. Like these guys are fearless. They've been there, done that. They're not going to be confused by things that younger teams are going to be. There's not going to be as many learning curves. There's not going to be as much slumps, whatever. But there is going to be like the ceiling. They're kind of there. Like they are who they are. Like Kobe Brea is a knockdown 3 shooter. And can, this year he's added a little bit to his bag getting to the rim, but he's not going to be a great defender.
Yeah.
So and that's just one example. So those are the big things. And then, the other big thing that came out of this game, and it's really been a story all year, is they got to get Jackson Robinson right. I mean, he's not confident right now. You see it in his body language. It's poor. If he's not hitting shots early, it feels like he disengages. He's, a little lackadaisical on the defensive end when his offense isn't there. He's kind of just standing in the corner. He's not really cutting as hard as he should be. They got to get that ironed out. And I think, one thing you might have to debate is this is a guy that last year was the 6th man of the year in the Big 12. That was the last year of the Big 12. Wasn't quite as good as what the SEC is now, but comparable. And maybe you need to get him coming off the bench again. And, you have with the understanding of, hey, you're trading some defense for offense because Kobe Brea is not going to give you much defensively, and that's who you'd have to replace him with the starting lineup. But maybe just to get more so, because the thing I'll say about Kobe Brea is there a bit, he hasn't, in all 3 of the losses, he hasn't shot great. He's obviously gotten exploited on the defensive end at times, but there hasn't been one time all year where I've watched Kobe Brea and say his confidence is down or his effort's not there. He's putting up shots. If they're not falling, they're not falling, but he's not afraid to put them up. He's, doing everything he can to fight defensively. He's just not a very good defender. I never questioned the effort or confidence of Kobe Brea. The way he carries himself on the court, with the media, in warm-ups, like very confident dude. So I think thrusting him into the starting lineup, he's going to be able to handle it. He'll be fine. And with him being kind of a very confident young man. Jackson Robinson, who right now is just not confident, maybe that plays into your favor where you could just throw that guy in there and say, hey, we need you to do this so we can get your teammate back on track here. And I wonder if that move is coming as soon as Saturday. I think it's worth giving it a shot. You have 16 regular season games left. You got to get some answers. You got to get the guy that was supposed to be your bucket getter going. And that's just one solution I can think of right now.
Yeah, and just real timid, hesitant, no aggression. I'm dating myself, but going back to, my Cowboys, Jimmy Johnson with the Herschel Walker trade and, getting all those players with the Vikings. And I saw him in an interview and he talked about, did I make mistakes? Sure, I didn't do anything perfect, but this is back when him and Jerry Jones were still working together. But if we decide if we're going to make a mistake, we're going to make a mistake going 100 miles an hour. And if Jax was out there, going all out, if you're still messing up, at least, going 100 miles an hour, that would be even better than, the hesitant, the half speed, being timid, just being just too cautious and just kind of withdrawing, being that shrinking violet that we're seeing right now. So, maybe the 6-man role is better. But yeah, it's especially in the big games, and I hoped it wouldn't come to this. You saw him play well in the non-conference against some inferior competition. Okay, cool. And you kept, maybe we need to see him do it in a big game. We see it, the Duke game wasn't great. Then he came through against Gonzaga. I'm like, okay, maybe this will get him going, and you hope that would have been the spark that was needed but just we've seen enough of a sample size to like, hey, okay, it's not really working as of right now. And you hate to say that, but that's where we are right now.
Yeah, there's no question, and it's frustrating because this team is so talented. Like there's they have a lot of talent. The depth, it could be better. It's not terrible, but like Lamont Butler he's so much better than I thought he was. I mean, offensively, he's having a career best year while he's doing exactly what he did on the defensive end. What he did, I should say, at San Diego State. So, like, the pieces are there, and then they have the performances against these top 10 opponents, and it's just frustrating to not be able to put all the pieces together consistently. But part of it's this league, and part of it is, self-inflicted by Kentucky. And look, they have a date with a guy that's literally named the dentist Saturday with Chris Jans. That, like, Mississippi State, they're a little different because Josh Hubbard is such an elite, scorer and point guard, but they're still the same old Mississippi State where, they're really, really good defensively. They really box you out and rebound, but they're not going to light up the score sheet. They're going to play slow. They're going to want to play a slugfest. They shoot the three, okay, not great. Hubbard leads them in scoring with 17, then their next guy's 11, and then their third leading scorer is at 9 points a game. Like, they're not going to overpower you offensively, but they're going to try to beat you 70-50 in their own ballpark, in their own arena. And, this is a Mississippi State team that, two things. One, that they're going to be more familiar with Mark Pope than anyone because anyone besides Todd Golden, I should say, because Chris Jans and Mark Pope played against each other when Pope was at Utah Valley or BYU. I forget which stop. He was conference rivals with New Mexico State, so they played a lot. And two, they're out for blood because they haven't won a regular season game against Kentucky since Billy Clyde was here. Only time Mississippi State beat John Calipari was the SEC tournament, the COVID year. So this Mississippi State crowd, I remember last year going down to Starkville, and it was kind of a late arriving crowd. They had a baseball game. The fans kind of poured in late, and then the energy kind of went up a notch, going toward the second half, and then when you had the shootout, there with Hubbard and Shepard. But this is going to be a standalone night on campus. You have Mississippi State's a ranked team that's been to the NCAA tournament 2 years in a row. They haven't had a win over Kentucky in such a long time. Not in front of fans, it's been over a decade because the NCAA tournament, barely anyone was there. That SEC tournament rather that year. So this is a state team that's going to be out for blood. I'm sure they know the history of this rivalry, or it hasn't really been a rivalry lately. It used to be a rivalry when Mark Pope was playing in it. So yeah. So it's just, this is a really tough spot for Kentucky to be in. And I think we're going to even if they lose, we're going to learn a lot about what they're made of with how they come out. And, if they come out physical and they come out ready to fight, those will be really good signs. If they come out and they do what they did against Georgia and Clemson and these teams that lost, that beat them by just out physicaling them and running them off the 3-point line, then either Mark Pope is not getting to his team's head or Mark Pope's not doing a good enough coaching them up. Because what is it that football coaches always say? Don't make the same mistake twice. So you don't want to make the same mistake 4 times.
Yeah, that's it. You mentioned, stuff going on around the league. Alabama already handled South Carolina 88-68 tonight. Texas A&M is down 12 at Oklahoma. Oklahoma's up 30-18. Now it's 30-20.
Wow.
Top 20 matchup in Norman, and Oklahoma is taking it
life on the road.
Taking it to the act. Yeah.
I do think A&M though is, I just want to confirm. Yeah, Wade Taylor's not playing tonight, so that is something to watch.
That is significant, yeah. For the most part, life on the road. You're exactly right. We saw what happened to Kentucky last night.
How about Tennessee, Florida?
Tennessee in Gainesville.
Yeah, I thought Florida was going to win that game. I mean, Tennessee was just due to lose, and Florida's really good, but 73-43.
It kind of sort of wasn't that close at times.
It wasn't close.
It was. They had to.
Tennessee made 4 shots from the field in the first half.
Tennessee had to get hot to crack 40.
Yeah, it was awful. It was shocking. So, look, I think I think there have only been three road winners or 4 road winners so far in this SEC. On Saturday, the only road team to win was Vandy at LSU. Auburn beat Texas. It took a lot to beat them, though. Texas. And then Mississippi State beat Vandy in Nashville yesterday. So that's 3. And then tonight, old friend John Calipari. 2 losses tonight. South Carolina. I think South Carolina is the one team in the league we're going to look at and say, they're not very good, but they always play well against Kentucky. And then Arkansas tonight lost to Ole Miss at home. So,
at home. Now they were on the road in Knoxville Saturday.
But still, that's what there's 6. So we're 16. We're 16 games in the SEC play, only 5 road wins. That's a pretty good sample size.
Yeah, 11-5. That's a good record in the NFL. I wish the Cowboys had done that. So Tennessee. Arkansas scores 52 at Tennessee Saturday. When Kentucky got that in a half against Florida. They get 66 tonight, but Ole Miss beats them 73-66.
And Arkansas was winning the whole. Ole Miss never led in the first half.
Yeah, just all fell apart.
Maybe the Kentucky fans knew a thing or two about what they were talking about. Look, the Kentucky's got their own flaws.
Yeah.
But it's just again, he changed headquarters, and it's embarrassing.
And I'm not throwing this your way. We talked about kind of Amari and Andrew being what they are as bigs. Garrison has time to develop if he stays a year or two, and what Pope and them want. I'm real excited because since the bigs do so much initiating the offense, I'm real curious to see what Malachi Moreno can do. You got a clean slate, talented freshman big man coming in to see what the offense looks like with him next year. You get him in the weight room, you get him, a little more polished offensively. So I'm by no means wishing this year away, but it'd be nice to see what happens as Pope continues to recruit. And you still got to give him credit for what they did, even getting this roster together. But some of the guys just are what they are at this point.
Yeah, again, yeah, and that just goes back to being veteran laden.
Yeah.
But there's still room to grow as a team, which is good. I mean, and there's still like Jackson Robinson. There's a really good player in there. It just wouldn't have happened in the Big 12 if there wasn't last year. And there's still room, for other, and there's still room for other guys to improve. Eventually, you're going to get Kirk Carissa back, which I think will help with the energy level. I'm not sure. Look, he's an erratic player. But I know what we talk about effort and we talk about physicality. You're going to get that from Kirk Carissa. No questions asked. So they need to get him back eventually. And hopefully that'll happen by the end of the month or so here. So it's, again, these next two games, I think Kentucky, obviously, ideally you win them both. They have to win one of these games. Obviously. I'm trying to think of the ultimatum I want to give them. I think they have to win at least one, and they have to be very competitive in both. I don't think there can be another dud. If they lay another egg in either of these next two games against highly physical opponents, I'll be very concerned about them because they're just going to see it all year long, and teams are just going to keep executing that game plan.
That's true.
But if they can go out there and fight 40 minutes with both of these teams, even if they lose one, I'll feel better about it. They just got to show me something. I mean, in all three losses, it's just kind of felt like they were manhandled. Last year, with a younger team, you felt like some of the losses you could have explained away to youth, or you could have just been, all right. But like the Kansas game, for example, that was the third game of the year. They played really well and hard in that game. They blew a lead, but it was like, you know what? They went head to head with a really old, experienced, talented Kansas team, and they almost pulled it out.
Mm-hmm.
None of these three losses have had many moral victories to them. Right. And this is not a moral victory program by any means, but at least show me that you're making progress and taking your issues that you have seriously if you're going to lose either one of these games.
For sure. Real quick, just flashing back to Saturday. We saw the whole sit down, stand up debate. Watching on TV, about 10 minutes left in the second half. A lot of the arena was standing, and there was a big chant throughout the arena. So when you were there, I don't know if that's the most people I've seen standing.
That was a great environment.
In a long time. I was like,
yeah, I think the crowd. Look, I know there was the whole the sit thing with the one angry guy, whatever the hell that was. But look, this is my 6th year on the beat, 7th season in Lexington. The environments at Rupp Arena this year have been the best since I've been there. I mean, there are a couple of games here and there over the years that have, the 2 times Kansas has been in Rupp during my time here. The Tennessee game last year when it was a top 10 or 5 matchup. I forget exactly what the rankings were. The game, another Tennessee game when I know Tennessee was number 1. I think Kentucky was 5. And Kentucky ran them out of the building. There have been some ones that stand above any of the games this year, but overall, even some of the non-con games against the mid-major teams, there have been sellout, loud environments. The Louisville game was an outstanding environment where Kentucky fans did a really good job of keeping red out of the crowd. And then the Florida game was the best of them yet. So, look, this fan base is still – it's something new. It's something different. They like the style of play. But the energy – it's just not – the energy's got to better. The effort and the fight – it's got to take a step up. If they bring that effort and that fight and then keep doing the things they're capable of on the offensive end, this fan base is going to take them the rest of the way, at home. And you're going to continue seeing outstanding crowds. We all know what the Arkansas environment's going to be like in a couple weeks, but you're going to have the best of Big Blue Nation behind you if you can get those things going. But, we'll see. There's still some work to do.
Yeah. We mentioned last year. Talked a little bit Rob and Reed. Reed Shepherd got sent down to the Rio Grande Valley Vipers, the Rockets G League affiliate, and you kind of saw rumblings. It wasn't, like it just decided yesterday to do it because he hadn't been playing a lot, and he's drafted third, but he's on a good team. You got to, team barely missed playoffs last year, playing well this year. They're 2 seed in the West. You got several guards already there. You get the old guy, Fred VanVleet from Wichita State. Kentucky fans remember him from 10 years ago in that game with Julius Randle and all them in the tournament. Jalen Green, Cam Whitmore, Amen Thompson. So he loaded at the guard position. Yeah. He hasn't been able to play a lot. So, send him down, let him run the offense, get a rhythm. A lot of people, he should have stayed Kentucky. Oh, he's a bust. Tennessee fans, he's a bust, all that kind of stuff. But it was so far what it was intended to be. Go down there. He about drops 50 on the Thunder team, 49.
Crazy.
Stuff the stat sheet. Talks that he'll be back up pretty quick. But he went down there with bad intentions, and
yep.
he took it out on the OKC squad. And it's a little bump in the road, but I think it'll do him forward. So I was going to try to get Lashard Binkley covers the Rockets, had him on when Reed got drafted to Houston, and he, his fingers on the pulse, but didn't work out today. Might get him on a day or two, and if not, but glad to see Reed go down there and do well, because a lot of people in Kentucky aren't NBA fans, so they saw him tear up the summer league, and now the next thing they know, what, he's getting sent down to the G League. What's going on?
Yeah,
so,
I know, and I know you're a Rocket fan. You're happy he's there, but it's kind of a tough situation for him in the sense that the Rockets are much better than a team that should have ever been picking third in the draft. I mean, obviously having a strong season, and they already started to have the pieces in play to be contenders last year when they were 500, and they've taken another step this year. So it was kind of a tough situation as a rookie as the third overall pick and in a weaker draft to walk into a win now team and a win now situation. And sometimes that's how it goes. So I think he'll be fine. He'll be just fine. Obviously, he tore it up in his G League debut or whatever it was, and he'll be back soon. And hopefully, even if it's not this year, he'll be a big part of their future plans. And look, maybe we saw it with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, right? He kind of had the same thing where he got drafted as a late lottery pick to a Clippers team that was in a win now mode. And what did they do? They traded him for a superstar in Paul George, and then Shai has turned into a star in Oklahoma City. Maybe the Rockets go big name hunting, and they trade Shepherd and he does well elsewhere. Who knows? But that kid will be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had to get that in, and we'll get back on some more, transfer portal for football and stuff in the coming days and weeks, and should be spring practice before we know it. But basketball is in right now. The women are doing well. Coach Brooks and the ladies are
awesome.
tearing it up. Georgia Amore is just killing people. Claire Strack, Tiani Key, they got a squad over there. So
sure do.
They're off to a good start in SEC play as well. Men's and women's SEC is just a gauntlet, and so you just got to take the ups and the downs because everybody's going to get punched in the face at some point. It's just a matter of time. So Cats got it last night, but hopefully we can see a bounce back in Starkville, or at least, like you said, a competitive. We're in it to fight, and if we lose, like landed on the line, not a clunker if they're going to lose. So I like the way you said that. So we'll see what happens Saturday night. Everybody subscribe, follow on YouTube where you get your podcasts, Believe in Kentucky, Believe Podcast Network. Follow Aaron at Cat's Paws, 24/7 Sports. And we'll jump on off of here. Everybody stay warm and safe at all this weather that we're getting over these next few days. And we'll be back at it next week, man. So be safe traveling home, AG.
Appreciate it, man.
Everybody take care. We'll see y'all next time on Believe in Kentucky.